Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the weekly astrology for the week of May 30th. This week is, definitely, I'm sure a lot of you have watched other astrologers and things like that, and this week is a little bit more of a challenging week because of this new moon on the 4th. There's some interesting things here. I thought I would take a look at some of the other planets outside of the moon and some of the other things that are going on because there's the way that a lot of the astrologers are talking about it, I think is a little bit overly negative maybe, and I don't think it necessarily has to be that negative, although it is. I mean, it is a very challenging we have this grand cross basically forming up here at the time of this new moon, and that could make it a little bit challenging. But I think we have some other good things going on, and that's what I would like to take a look at as well. But the first thing is at the beginning of the week we have Mercury trining Pluto, there's a lot of problems with confidence at the time of this new moon, and Mercury trine Pluto is great for confidence and building confidence, but also seeing things for how they are in a lot of ways. That all goes out the window once we hit this new moon. So I would say that use this Mercury trine Pluto tomorrow on Monday, or if you're watching this on Monday today, and really, if you're starting anything new or planning on starting any new projects or anything like that, make sure that you maybe even write your plans down and things like that, and also sticking to your plans and stick to your plans that you make like on Monday. Maybe even if you don't. Maybe if you don't take action until after the new moon, especially because I think there's a lot of wavering and going back and forth that is totally unnecessary with everything that's going on with the new moon. So let's take a look at this new moon. It's in Gemini, all about socializing, all about friendships and relationships. We even have this grand Earth trine going on still in the sky. But there are a bunch of squares, of course, to this new moon, and we're going to take a look at that. I think this new moon is coming in because, everything I'm going to say, this video is actually going to be probably rather short compared to the other weekly astrology videos because, everything I've been talking about for the past several weeks, it's pretty much all the same. It's like the same energy, dealing with the same things, but now it's all like coming together and coming to a head, and it's really like all about have you learned your lessons? Have you learned what you need to do and things like that? I think a lot of you have. So definitely, also stay moving during this new moon. It's a very lazy new moon as well. Just looking at some of the other things that are going on around here. There could be like a lot of laziness and things, so I think moving around will be important, and also be ready for anything with this new moon as well. I think that a lot of old situations could come up during this time, and I'm actually going to pull some cards at the end of this too, because I do want to see what the cards have to say, but I think a lot of you received like threes in your readings, for example, for this week. And the threes threes can all be about like old situations coming back around and needing to make a better choice this time. It's kind of like you went one direction the first time a situation came around, and now you just need to choose the other path, go the other way, and that's what it's really all about. And so we have this tight grouping here of, with Venus, the Sun, and the Moon, they're all conjunct. And it's very interesting because, the way I look at the Sun and the Moon, as I've said before, the Moon is who you are, the Sun's who you're trying to become. We could throw Venus in there, about the things that we could say it's the things that you want in life and all this other stuff. So it's interesting that they're all together. And it's interesting that we have all these squares and conjunctions and things going on. Because I think it's going to bring people to making a lot of decisions in their lives in a lot of ways. But also, during this time, just as a side note, one thing that I noticed is that I would watch any credit and debit issues, probably even in debit and debt issues, anything involving your cards and all of those things, I'd keep them protected. You have Moon conjunct Venus here. And, it's just like one of those things where, I've read a lot about Moon conjunct Venus, and it can bring up, like, credit issues, like I said, issues involving your debit cards, maybe even, like, losing your wallet and things like that. So just take extra care around any of those things this week. Next, we have the Sun is, let's look at these conjunctions first. We have the Sun conjuncting the Moon. And this makes us very ambitious. It is where we are ambitious, where we want to succeed and things like that. But we can also kind of go a little bit overboard with the sun conjunct moon. And we can also do things like give too much information. And if you notice on the past few weeks talking about all this astrology and doing the astrology videos, I've said that it's pretty much a great time to listen in almost every single weekly astrology video that I've done so far. And like I said, it's like this week is that build up to all of those things. So I think it's definitely a better week to listen to people and to not talk, because I think you could give a little bit too much, especially if you're involved in any like situation. Like if you're involved in like a legal situation, it doesn't even have to be necessarily a negative situation. It could be anything. If you're trying to negotiate something, or you're involved in a legal situation, or you're doing, whatever you're doing, whatever. It could be, so many different things for all of you. Definitely just try to keep your mouth closed, really, as harsh as that sounds, because there's definitely a tendency to overshare, to say too much, to give too much information, all those things, and it can just become, something worse, or something that it doesn't need to be. So definitely do that. I think also, if we could just take all of these, sun conjunct moon, sun conjunct Venus, moon conjunct Venus, if we look at all three of these things going on here, I think that it could make us idealize situations as well. We have a lot of Jupiter squares as well we're going to take a look at here, and I think that we can make things out to be a lot more than they are, a lot less than they are, a lot more exciting than they are. So I think it's definitely a great week to like stay grounded and just, try, and especially around the time of the moon here, on the 4th, try not to have any, any feelings towards situations, and try not to, have any, I guess, opinions in a lot of ways, because I think that will help you a lot, and just like allow things to happen, and I think that'll be the best for this time. And, sun conjunct moon, by the way, can also make us take things very personally. I actually think that looking at the astrology here, a lot of you are going to be realizing how you've grown thicker skins since, for over the past several years here. And I think that's what the astrology has forced us to do. It's forced people to learn how to take more, And so while there is this overlying, like these conjunctions, this overlying thing about not being able to handle criticism, I actually think really it's kind of the opposite. I think you are all, have learned how to handle criticism a lot differently, and maybe a lot of you are just thinking about it during this time. So we also have Sun conjunct Venus. You could be taken advantage of. There's a million things going on right here. I said it last week. I said it the week before. I'm going to say it this week again. No get-rich-quick schemes. Don't, if anything, especially anything sounds too good to be true, it probably is during this time. Sun conjunct Venus. Just looking around the chart here, there's a couple other things going on. Even all three of these planets are squaring up to Neptune. Definitely Sun square Jupiter. Definitely a position where you could be tricked, and things like that. So avoid that at all costs, anything like that. And let's see, don't argue. No arguments this week either, same as last week. Avoid the arguments. Sun conjunct Venus, you could blow things up, in a relationship, and relationships, this new moon is all about relationships, so definitely avoid any arguments surrounding relationships and things like that. Next, you have the moon conjunct Venus. You could find out you're spending too much energy on things. Again, this could be, oversharing, over-talking, and things like that. It's also a position of procrastination, which we talked about the last couple weeks as well. Like I said, this video is probably going to be cut short because it's just a lot of the same stuff. But next, let's take a look at Saturn. Saturn's opposing all three. It's opposing the Sun. So, this is all about restrictions and where we have restrictions. Again, I think that a lot of this is going to be reflection. I think a lot of us are going to be reflecting on our restrictions, and like how we're sick and tired of it. A lot of people, I think, have that desire to break out, to kind of almost break free of these prisons, even if we've created these prisons for ourselves. And I think that's what this energy is kind of actually pushing us to do. I don't look at these squares as a bad thing. One thing to remember is that if we look at even a lot of famous people or rich people, a lot of them can be very heavily squared I think it's those squares that force them to do things. It forces them to take action. It forces them to work harder, and because they always had to work harder, they end up way more successful in life. So, we can look at these squares as a good thing. They're pushing us to more success. Next, we have the moon, opposing Saturn here. Just be gentle with yourself. We talked about this last week. Same thing with Venus here opposing Saturn. This is all about learning to handle criticisms and also be gentle on yourself. Don't be overly critical of yourself. I think there's a tendency here with all this going on to be, I see a lot of people, even intuitively, I feel a lot of people feeling like they are not where they should be, and feeling like they've maybe wasted time and things like that, and feeling like they should be way farther ahead, and maybe even people feeling like they're out of time, and like they don't have any more time and things like that. So those are just criticisms, coming from these planets and all of this. So definitely let that stuff go. And I think after you'll feel a lot better. Next, we have these, all three planets squaring up to Jupiter. So the sun here, again, could give us a little bit of false confidence, could make us a little bit too, aggressive, and we could also care a little bit too much about things that don't matter, even to the point where we're worrying, old guilt coming up and worrying about old situations. And also, again, with this position, definitely avoid anything that sounds too good to be true. The moon is also here, and so we could be, our emotions could be blown out of proportion a little bit too much, and we could not be seeing things very clearly. Common sense comes up a lot here with moon square Jupiter, so watch the common sense, make sure things make sense in a lot of ways. Venus squaring Jupiter, watch your spending, don't overspend. Remember the whole credit, debit, card, anything involving that, watch all of that during this time. All three planets are also squaring up to Neptune. So with the sun here, we could be not using enough power, right? Isn't it funny? We have on one hand, we could be using too much power. On the other hand, we could be a little bit too lazy, not using enough power. With all three of these planets here, it's really about maybe not being too sure what you want, not being sure of starting a new project, and also being a little bit restless as well, and needing to constantly check. I think if you're in a pattern where you're constantly checking if something is real, like a relationship or a business that you want to start, or something, any other project that you want to start, if you're constantly having to check in with yourself, you're like, oh, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to be with this person? That's this kind of energy here. I think a lot of people are kind of doing that, and just know that I think it'll clear up anyway, at the end of this. But let's pull some cards here and get a little bit better clarity on the week and seeing what's going on here. Yeah, very, very funny. So, Seven of Clubs. Remember what I said about being stuck in prison, a self-created prison, right? And wanting to break out of it. I pretty much knew this card would probably show up, or something very similar to this, because, like I said about the prison, Seven of Clubs is a card of feeling stuck in a prison. Usually a prison you create for yourself. I think a lot of people are actually realizing that they have created these, places where they are trapped, and now you are all breaking out of it. So it should be rather exciting, that you are breaking out of these things. However, is going to take work. Seven of Clubs does require work. However, like I said, there is a lot of success here. Could also be a lot of gender issues. We've been seeing this. I talked about it before, all these bathroom incidents and things like that, how we'd be seeing gender issues, and sure enough, like I said, the bathroom incidents and all these other things that are going on that seem important, but really, are they really as important as they seem? That is the question, right? And that's what this card is all about. So we could see flare-ups and things like that about those types of issues, especially with the sun and the moon here. We could see a lot of those issues. We could also see issues involving fathers and mothers and things like that, just as a side note. And so that could be very interesting. Next, you have the Nine of Hearts. Very good card of wishes and fulfilling wishes and things like that. I would actually say this week it's actually more about what can you do to fulfill your wishes. What do you have to do in deciding how much work you have to take and how much work you have to do to kind of fulfill your wishes. It's a very good card. And it also represents almost complete. Being almost done. Nines are right before you're complete with things, so it's like we're almost there. We've almost made it. Like I said, to me this is almost a very much an ending week to these very similar energies that we've been dealing with for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I think that this is a good card for that. And then finally, the Three of Clubs, second chances. Isn't it funny that I mentioned a 3 as well? This card does represent second chances, things coming back around. Remember what I said, the first time you did it wrong, the second time you need to do something different. So if you get any of these second chance situations coming up, definitely do whatever you didn't do the first time. Or, maybe like, you're having a second chance on a relationship. Or when I say that, you might just be getting a second chance in the sense that another relationship with somebody totally different is being made available to you. So it could be somebody totally different, and just maybe you've learned how to act differently in the relationship. Maybe you've grown a thicker skin, like I said, in relationships, or even in business partnerships, or in business in general, or at work. And this time around, it's time to do things differently. And that's what this card is all about. So I think it'll be a very interesting week, and we could even see, like I said, we could even see a lot of the stuff on a global scale: credit issues, male-female sex issues, even mother and father issues coming up this week. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on as well. But thank you for watching, and enjoy the week.